Well, hello and welcome to Jonathan from the Heart. I'm Jonathan Aslay of jonathanashlay.com, and I'm so excited to be doing this short video for you today. Our topic, get a man to open up if he's scared or withdrawn. All right, really quickly, if you're brand new to my YouTube channel, please hit the subscribe button, hit the bell so you can be notified of new videos. And if any time during this video the content resonates with you, please hit that like button so I can be seen in the YouTube algorithms. Lastly, these are my weekend videos I shoot on my balcony, very similar to the videos I shoot in my private group called Midlife Love Mastery. This is a group where you get direct access to me, and if you post a question in the group, I shoot a personalized video just for you. So the link below to my VIP group. All right, let's talk about men, how to get a man to open up if he's scared or withdrawn. Actually, before I get started on that, I've just got a tiny little bit of a rant because I've witnessed lately, and I've mentioned this before on a couple videos, some dating advice that just absolutely infuriates me. And it's because a lot of dating advice and relationship advice out there is very manipulative, pandering to our unhealthy ego aspects of our lives that oftentimes blocks love. And really, isn't the whole point of being in a relationship all centered around love? So why would we want to set people up for failure? And I just got a rant for a second about this one piece of advice, and it was centered around, if a guy doesn't offer to pay the valet on a date, don't accept a second date from him. And I'm like, that represents that he's cheap or something like that. And it's things like that. I also heard another dating advice, always wait 24 hours to respond to a guy, to create tension, to make him want to chase you. And I'm like, really? Like, is this the kind of advice that's helpful to people? I mean, all it does is set people up for failure. It's pitting men against women. In fact, a lot of dating advice is pitting men against women. In other words, men are supposed to do things this way, and women are supposed to do these things this way. I'm tongue-tied here. And everything will just magically work out if everybody just acts perfect. If everybody acts perfect. And the reality is there is no such thing as perfect. So before I lean into this conversation of how to get a man to open up if he's scared or withdrawn, or really about how to choose a guy who might be scared or withdrawn, I want to set up the bigger picture here for a moment for everyone. And this might resonate with you, and I hope it does. Because the reality is every human being, I don't care who they are, I mean, short of growing up with Ozzie and Harriet as your parents, most of us had childhood wounds and traumas, or adult traumas, that has affected us in a deep way that makes up our personality. Let me repeat that. We all have childhood wounds and traumas, or adult traumas that affects our personality. In fact, our personality has been created by layers and layers of good and not good things that happen in our life. And recently, I received an email from a woman who was in a relationship with a man who he was sexually abused as a child. He was beaten by his parents. And this is a man who has suffered a lot of trauma in his life. I know many women who have gone through the same thing. They've gone through sexual abuse. They've gone through emotional abuse. Men certainly have been ridiculed. I mean, most boys growing up are really taught to repress our emotions. If you're dating a man who's a baby boomer or a Gen Xer, I mean, it's a little bit different for the millennials, and the Gen Zs, but certainly those of us in midlife, and that's where my coaching leans into, is midlife, which is after baby making years and before retirement. Most people, most men, for example, have absolutely been repressed when it comes to their emotions. We were taught to stuff in our feelings and be a man and actually use aggression, because we have testosterone, use our aggression with other men. This is why we're oftentimes very combative with our male friends, which I don't think is healthy. You know, we've come to accept this behavior of competitiveness and this combative behavior with our male friends. I'm going to tell you it's not healthy. In fact, I've even recognized in my own life that combative negative behavior as I've aged is starting to wear on many of my friendships. And this is the way we were raised. And sadly, women were also raised from a different perspective. Most girls have been raised sometimes to stuff their feelings, but also it's about being pretty, and it's all focused on looks, and there's all these beauty pageants. Think about that. There's no such thing. I just thought of this just now. I don't think there's any such thing as a boys' beauty pageant. Think about that. There's no boys' beauty pageant. It's girls' beauty pageants. And so women have practically we've been indoctrinated or subjected to an absolute objectification of little girls growing up. And it's all about looks and beauty. Men, it's all about status and providing, protecting, and women, it's all. So, can you see how this can wear on us? And let's not even, I didn't even get into how advertising plays into this and how we've been bombarded with advertising for years that have literally set us up against men against women. And so, is it any wonder as we age that we don't have a lot of emotional stuff that makes us scared or causes us to be withdrawn in relationship? So today I want to invite you to explore an idea that I have. And I'm not married to this, and let me just say this is just my perceptions and opinions. This is by no stretch, the truth. You have to decide the truth for yourself. But I want to explore an opportunity for you that might allow you to go into deeper intimacy with a man who might already be predisposed to be scared or withdrawn. So give me a second. I want to drink my coffee, and my mug says, sometimes you forget you're awesome. So this is your reminder. Everybody, I want to remind you you're awesome today. And my t-shirt says, humankind, be both. If you like my t-shirt and my mug, please post a comment below. But I want to create a new conversation for many of you that are in the beginning stages of dating. And I just want to paint a picture for a second. You meet a guy. Most likely it's online. I mean, it's rare these days that we're meeting people organically. I mean, I knew when I was growing up, or not growing up, but when I was in my mid-20s, I mean, it was Friday nights, go out dancing to pick up chicks with the guys. It was Friday and Saturday night, go out dancing to pick up chicks. I mean, it was like every Friday, Saturday night. For years, this generation doesn't do that. They don't meet organically anymore. And certainly our generation, and for midlife, it's much harder to meet organically because we're not surrounded by single eligible people. It's not in our daily purview. So online dating happens to be the predominant place to meet. Now, here's the thing about the challenge with online dating. First off, there's all this expectation that there should be some grand date, if you will, by a lot of people. It goes back to that one person that said you have to pay for the valet. Sometimes a good date is just going for a walk. Well, I live by the beach, so a walk along the pier would be a good date. You don't have to worry about being rejected because you didn't treat for the valet. Well, again, what a stupid thing in my mind. Anyway, keep going with this. Is we meet people online, and they're total strangers to us. We have no idea of their past. We have no idea of their experiences, is what they experienced in their life. And so we oftentimes judge right off the bat. When I say judge, we assess based on the surface. What do they look like? And how did they dress? What kind of car they drive? We oftentimes focus on the superficial things. I'm going to totally go off on a tangent here for a second. Well, I'm going to go off on a tangent here for a second. I want to tell you a quick story. I was at an event called the Hoffman Process. The Hoffman Process. This is a deep dive into healing childhood wounds and traumas that cause our negative patterns and limiting beliefs. In fact, I recommend this book frequently, and it kind of relates to this topic, the Hoffman Process, the Hoffman Process. By the way, if you purchase the book, this is going to take 50 hours to do all the work inside of here. So this is going to require some ninja level work. But if you're ready to heal, and if you haven't healed childhood wounds and traumas and you're ready to do it, I invite you to go to the event or purchase the book. So I'm at the event, 19 women, 20 guys. And you're not allowed to tell people what you do for a living. And at the end, I shared that I was a dating and relationship coach. And one of the, and I'm shortening this story, but one of the women came up to me and said, Jonathan, when I first came here, I saw two of you guys I was most attracted to. There was a guy who looked like the Marlboro Man, and then myself. And she said I was attracted to you. After being here for a week, and hearing every single man's heart here, and seeing what they've experienced and really getting inside to who they are, I would date every man here. And it occurred to me That this is our challenge, that we don't really get intimate with people. We're hyper focused on the superficial things in the early stages of dating instead of going into deeper intimacy. Intimacy, into me you see. And when someone's scared or withdrawn, is either they're incapable of going into deeper intimacy, or they just haven't been taught how to go there. So I want to create a narrative here for you today to give this a try, to see how it works for yourself. You know, it's really the idea of it, not the specifics of it. But I want to set you up for success with men, to create that opportunity where they can go into deeper intimacy so you don't have to worry about the guys who are scared or withdrawn. Now, let me first set the stage. Most men are actually good men. Most men are good men. Just a lot of them are bad daters. A lot of people are hurting on the inside, just like what I said. And ideally, the more, the more the person's life was traumatized as a child, the more they need therapy, personal development, self-help, or spiritual work. This is one of the reasons why I wrote my book. What the heck is self-love anyway? What the heck is self-love anyway? By the way, there's a link below to my book, and all the other Jonathon Recommends books is listed there. Why I'm talking about this is, the more traumatized someone's life is, the more they need personal development, self-help, and spiritual work. So, and traumatization is degree. Someone who's been sexually traumatized, I didn't have to deal with that, probably has a lot greater fear around intimacy than in my particular case, where I had a third grade teacher that called me stupid in front of the class, and that affected me for most of my life. In fact, it created part of my personality. A third grade teacher telling me I'm stupid in front of the class. I mean, it's the fact, and the fact I'm even talking about it still means that it's still resonant inside of me, and it's part of my personality that causes me to think I'm either stupid or unworthy. Can any of you relate to that? Can any of you relate to some adult that belittle you, whether in front of children or other people, that actually has sunk so deep that it's a deep hurt inside? I know I'm experiencing that. And the hurt actually has not gone away. It's there. I've certainly overcome a lot of the effects of it that caused me to have negative patterns and limiting beliefs in my life. But I'm telling you, I suspect if I'm experiencing this, I know you are too. So let's come back to what to say to a guy to get the conversation going. So conversation going to determine if this person's actually worthy to go deeper, if they're able to go past fears, if they're able to go past being withdrawn. So I have a little phrase I want created for you. And I've got my notes, my trusty glasses, and it says this. Oh, by the way, just again to set the stage, this isn't first or second date. This is somebody you realize that the two of you are probably going to explore a relationship together. You've gotten past the third or fourth date, and this is before sex. So typically these days, most of the time people have sex between the 4th and 10th date, okay? And I'm not talking about long distance relationships. I'm talking about people that live relatively near each other, that have a capacity to spend 1 or 2 days a week seeing each other, those types of relationships, because long distance is a whole nother clusterfuck. Oops, I didn't want to say the F word in my Jonathon from the Heart videos, but I just said it. So it's a whole other clusterfuck when we talk about long distance. When I'm talking about two people that are actually capable of investing in a daily relationship. So again, coming back to the sex piece, most likely these days it happens between the 4th and 10th date. That's not absolute, but that's what seems to happen. So I want to suggest this before sex. Well, first off, I want to invite you to maybe say something like this. When you realize you like the guy and you know he likes you, you might say something like, look, Tim, we'll call him Tim. Tim, I want you to know I have no expectations of you. I've heard that most men might think women are codependent, needy, or demand more than a man can give. I'm not that kind of woman. And I just want you to know, I live in my power, I have standards, and I have boundaries. Now I'm going to repeat that one more time. I have no expectations of you. I've heard that most men think women are codependent, needy, or demand more than a man can give. I'm not that kind of woman. I live in my power. I have standards and boundaries. Listen, this is an empowering statement. It sets the stage up for saying, look, I understand the bullshit narrative about men and women. I understand most of you men actually think women are codependent, needy, or demanding. We actually, men, think that way. We men think women are irrational. It's one of the reasons why men often say women are crazy. Because when a man's emotional capacity is here and a woman has an expectation of emotional here, that space in between is called irrational drama. Irrational drama, and that's the way many of us men view women. I'm not saying it's a valid view, but that's the way a lot of men view it. In fact, there's a video out there called the Crazy Hot Matrix that kind of lays this out. Type in Crazy Hot Matrix. There's a nerd by a bulletin board. And this is the way a lot of men think. So by setting the stage, look, I have no expectations of you. That takes pressure off of us, or at least it might create the perception of creating pressure. We still might not believe you, but I certainly think it's going to help advance your cause. And that cause is deeper intimacy. So I want to follow up, and this is before you have sex with a guy. I'd like you to say, or at least here's the opportunity for you, is to say, so if you're open to exploring a relationship that leads to partnership, I'm game. If you're not, we're not a match. I'm going to repeat that. If you're open to exploring a relationship that leads to partnership, I'm game. If you're not, we're not a match. I think it's important to set that standard right from the beginning, because I can't begin to tell you how many women tell me they're in relationships for 4 months, 6 months, 7 months, 8 months, 9 months, 10 months. They don't call each other boyfriend and girlfriend. There's no established monogamy or exclusivity. Ladies, you have to, I'm encouraging you to set your standard right before the penis goes inside the vagina, to set your standard right from the get-go. Because if you don't, you're basically giving your power away to a man. And I'm going to tell you, ladies, you do 2 things habitually that gives your power away to a man, and I'm here to encourage you to take your power back. And by the way, this is my 7 ways women give their power away. But number 1, the relationship is on his terms. You abandon your standards and you abandon your boundaries. And number 2, you're afraid to speak your truth with him. I'm here to encourage more communication. By the way, most humans are stunted at communication, and most humans they're incompetent when it comes to conversational communication. I mean, I'm talking deeper communication. I don't mean surface communication. A lot of people can do the surface. How you doing? I hope your day is going well. Is your day going well? I hope you really have a great day. Have a fabulous day. This is this is what people are talking about. They're not going deeper into intimacy. And that's what I want to lean into for the last few minutes of this video, is to discuss intimacy, because this is going to get a guy to open up if he's scared or withdrawn. And it's simply this. Ladies, you have to recognize that men, as I said earlier, have been stunted at an emotional level. Okay, we've been stunted for most men. The best way to get a guy to open up is to express your feelings about the dynamics of the relationship from a very healthy, kind, competent way. And what I'm trying to say is not an irrational way where you're vomiting your feelings, but you're expressing your feelings in a calm, cool demeanor, and you invite him to express his feelings about whatever it is you want to talk about. So I want you to think about this. You might spend 4 minutes expressing your feelings, and then you invite him to express his feelings, and he might only give you 30 seconds. And that's probably a lot, right? But then you do it again, and he might give you 35 seconds. And then you do it again, and he might give you 42 seconds of his feelings. And you do it again, and he might give you 1.5 minutes of his feelings. How men tap into their heart is through women. We don't learn this stuff to men. We learn it through women, and it's through expressing our feelings. I know you've been indoctrinated that men are thinkers and women are feelers. Guess what? Men are feelers too. We just haven't been taught to how to express our emotions. So I highly recommend reading this book. Nonviolent Communication by Marshall Rosenberg. Nonviolent Communication by Marshall Rosenberg. Should have been called Compassionate Communication. In fact, I invite you to buy 2 copies. Before the penis goes inside the vagina, I invite you both to read this book and this book as well, 8 Dates by Drs. John and Julie Gottman. These are great books to shift the narrative from the traditional dating practice that's all centered around whether or not the guy pays for the valet or not. Ugh. And maybe I'm inviting you to go deeper than the surface level, to go deeper. In fact, if you're familiar with my relationship iceberg, the tip of the iceberg is chemistry. That's where attraction lies. Below the iceberg is shared values, emotional maturity, blendable lifestyles. That's where compatibility lies. And the more you share the same values, your lifestyles are blendable, and you have emotional maturity, the waterline of attraction drops, and you feel more and more attracted to one another. Because ultimately, a relationship won't work. You can have all the chemistry in the world, but if you don't share the same values, if your lifestyles aren't blendable, and that emotional maturity, and also the capacity to go into deeper intimacy and emotional maturity, to go transparent if it's material, the relationship, you're going to really struggle to get that relationship off the ground. So I've just given you a couple ideas. You have to take it for what it's worth for you. I just invite you to start from a premise of first see the big picture. Not from the rules-based way of dating, but from the perspective of we're all screwed up. It's just a matter of degrees, number 1. Number 2, understand that men have a predisposition to think of women as being codependent and needy. So establish right up front, you just say it right up front. That's not who I am. That's actually like hitting the shark on the nose, if you will. And lastly, lead by example, by expressing your feelings and inviting him to express his feelings. And you might just find out that you can turn a weak relationship around because you're talking to one another from a heart-centered space. And that's my invitation for every one of you, is to start to talk from a heart-centered space. All right. I think that's enough for today. I hope you found value in this video. I'd like to hear your thoughts. Please post a comment below if this resonated with you. If you have any questions, I do my best to read them all. Lastly, please share this video with your friends. Tell everyone about my channel. And if you're interested in private coaching, check out the link below to schedule a discovery call with me to see if working with a coach is right for you. All right, I think this will be a great place to wrap up this video. First off, I'm going to give myself a big, gigantic Jonathon Bear hug of self-love. I'm going to reach into the camera and give you a hug of love, if that's okay. I'm going to ask you to turn to someone, a pet, a teddy bear, a pillow, and give it or them a hug of love, because hugs are a great source of love. And let's face it, we could all use more love in our lives. Thanks a bunch. Bye-bye now.